Okay, so
this one has a sign.
We're driving and we're like, oh, there's a cemetery. I don't know if I can even come close to getting this for you. And as we're driving up and we stop, Betzer Cemetery, we see this one over here behind us. So we're gonna check both of these out. Okay, so I was like screaming at Wendy as we pulled up because of this right here, which we're pretty sure is the death house. Death houses are where they would store bodies when it was too cold to dig into the ground. Of course, when they didn't have this sort of machinery to do it. So that's exciting. We're going to check that out. And then looking back over here into what we can think is old Betzer, that is a giant zinc. So there's some really neat stuff over here. Another little zinc. This one is children again, 3 years old and 20 years old. And the 3-year-old was, what did you say, 1973? 1873. And obviously that was not a good year for children in this area because at the last cemetery we saw one that had died that year too on the zinc. Here in old Betzer, old Betzer, we found another Revolutionary War hero. Obviously the stone's in disrepair. We were kind of curious because this cemetery has a lot of American flags by graves, and typically you only see that with you know, people, veterans that have been in the wars, and they're just kind of everywhere in this cemetery, so it's going to be a little bit of a look and see as we go.
Like that.
So just from a cursory view of this cemetery, and there's a lot of cool stuff here, and I'm going to keep talking about it, but we're seeing that across the road in the newer cemetery that there's a lot more upkeep, and that over here there's just so much stuff that's leaning or falling over. I mean, look at this right here. It's really just a shame. These are beautiful monuments, and it's really sad to see this. And here you can actually see some of the score marks from when this was, you know, brought out. So there's some really cool stuff to be seen here, but unfortunately it's just in kind of bad repair. So I just want to get Wendy next to the zinc so you can see the scale of this thing. It's really beautiful. It's actually signed as well. Let's see if I can actually manage the camera well enough to show you. And actually something else that's really interesting, the weight of this thing has caused the base to buckle. It just shifted it right down and has cracked it right down into there. So that's kind of interesting to look at and see the way it's taken the time. Anyway, this is a pretty large monument. Samuel Christ. So again, this is probably somebody we could look up and see what their story was, because obviously he had some money. He's got some interesting imagery here.
That is probably Masonic. It's definitely a fraternal organization emblem you see, and I believe that's one the Masons use.
I will have to ask my husband. He is a Mason. He might know. So I will put in the comments of this if I find out what that imagery is.
Yeah, I think it's like somebody explained that was like the tribes of Israel.
Sounds right. Another cool little hand down here, holding hands. Generally this imagery is one that's, so when you see these fingers that are straight, that's usually the person who has passed, and this is the hand of the people who they've left behind, or is it the hand of God?
Usually it's the hand of God. Like
the hand of God, welcoming them, the grip, and then the ones that are straight are usually the one that's passed away. So here's another 1873. I think we're going to look this time up. So one of the things we haven't talked about is how, you know, a lot of these towns and a lot of the cemeteries sprung up along the Erie Canal, which is another reason we're finding our way to these cemeteries, because, you know, that's where the business was. That's where, you know, commerce and places that people could thrive. And also along the Erie Canal is disease, outbreaks, epidemics, because, you know, obviously things would flow through along with the canal. So we're thinking 1873 is probably maybe cholera. We're not really sure, so we're going to take a look at that. I will also put that in the description if I figure that out before this video. Just a quick note to say that this is pretty rare in this era to see the names vertical like this. Very neat little interesting detail, something unique. Here is a relatively tall obelisk with a little lamb on top for an infant. Again, kind of rare. Wendy was talking about how rare it is to see something this high with a lamb for an infant. Must have been a very beloved child. And here's another one with some kind of vertical naming going on. Again, pretty uncommon. So probably the same carver that did those others that I just showed you.
Yeah, but this is that same Lugopolis guy.
Yeah, so we just had a thought. We're gonna look this guy up. A lot of these are recarves where we're seeing this name, and we're kind of suspicious that this guy is actually modern and not the person who originally carved these stones. It brings to light something that occurs often, and we were just talking about another cemetery that we're going to be doing a story on in the coming weeks. Something we've been working on for a very long time and spent a lot of hours researching. But something we saw in these cemeteries is that they did a recarve of a lot of these old stones and used a modern font. It's heartbreaking to see that. But at least this guy, when he did the recarve, you can see that he maintained the historically accurate font. So we're going to do some research on this guy and find out when he actually was touching these stones. So here is another Revolutionary War hero, and obviously this is a modern stone, and Wendy and I were just talking about the different ways that these stones get replaced. There are several organizations, but in the 1930s they went through and cataloged a lot of these cemeteries in order to find the veterans, so that their stones could be replaced or upkept, or flags, or these little medallions you see here. These are really common, and they kind of clue you into what the person was and what they were involved in. But anyway, it could have been a veterans organization, it could have been the family themselves, it could have been somebody doing genealogy that replaced this. But anyway, it's a nice way for people to put in a new stone for somebody that deserves a recognition. Dangerous, gonna fall over and kill someone. Our third Revolutionary War vet, and here is a War of 1812, obviously probably his son. Henry L. Well, now that I look at the name, yes, Henry L. Spock Jr. So, interesting there. We really like finding these, Revolutionary War especially, because, you know, they're not easy to find all the time. Here's Wendy cleaning off a stone. Another of our friend JW here. I mean, this is a beautiful stone, and this is kind of what it would look like when it was first carved. So, it's nice to see this, but at the same time, it's curious as well. Now this is a damn shame. This is a damn shame. But
cemetery junk pile.
But super common. It happens. It's unfortunate. Very unfortunate. But here's a bunch of headstones lost to time, and now certainly lost. You know, some of them are still legible. I'm not gonna kill myself here. Yeah, I mean, beautiful. It's unfortunate. And there's probably, these are never gonna be recovered, unfortunately. It takes time, it takes money, it takes resources, and unfortunately, rather than dealing with stones that have been toppled and broken, either through time or weather or sinking or vandalism, whatever it is, unfortunately, this is what you see. There's some beautiful stuff there. Okay, so we're looking back through all these, and we found another signature here, which is not our friend JW. Beautiful stone, and we're starting to realize that some of these are probably newer stones that are complete replacements. And here you're looking at this one, and again we see our JW, and here he is carving at the top of the stone again, and we're talking about how that's pretty ballsy. So we're real curious to find out about this guy, because he seems to think pretty highly of himself and his skills. He does have beautiful carving, but you know, modern tools make modern stones, so it's not surprising that they look nice. This is a pretty beautiful stone again that demonstrates this sort of unique curve here that's obviously whatever carver was in the area really liked to do. We see that on this white marble quite a bit in this particular cemetery. This is fairly unique. It's, you know, the coffin shape. This was a little girl who was 3 years old when she died. You got the footstone over here at this end, and of course the headstone over there. Just a very unique grave blanket that we're pretty sure is period time.
The only thing that I'm not liking about this is that...
the restoration of it.
Well, the writing goes down under... Now there's definitely slots here where...
Well, do you think that one's just backwards?
I think what happened was when they went and reset it, maybe something
I think it's,
was on.
I don't know, I think it maybe is just backwards. Oh, this is in German. I'm going to take a nice little capture of this. We'll do some translation.
That's what it is that it should have been facing the other way.
Something that I'm going to say about, you know, in Victorian cemeteries, you tend to see all of the people facing the west where the sun rises. And in this cemetery and others, you know, they're just kind of all wishy-washy everywhere. So you don't really know what you're going to find, and it's not really exactly period specific, but facing the west was kind of what you saw most often in the Victorian era cemeteries. And to finish that thought, you know, we're talking about people facing the west, you know, they were so superstitious, and you would also see people that were turned around or placed in a different orientation, and that generally indicated not necessarily goodwill about the person. And here we see a War of 1812. Just wanted to show this delamination and how this is essentially going to be lost to time very soon. You see this on these sandstones where you start to see this crack happening. I mean, the sandstone has these lamination marks that go up and down like this, and that's the unfortunate part. If the lamination's not the way that the weight, of course every car comes by while I'm talking about this, but you can see it's just how the lamination is about to shear this off and it'll be lost forever. I just really like this. This shows you sort of the quarry marks in this sandstone where somebody had to take a chisel to really work to get this out by hand, and to bring it down to this shape. It's really neat to be able to see that history. We'll look on this side, and again you see that delamination happening. Before too long it'll all be gone. As Wendy just said, a bunch of Cadillacs and Karens out here. We are going now back to the car, and we're going to drive around and check out New Betzer Cemetery. I'm not sure if there's anything old in here. It looks like maybe up on the hill we see some stuff from an older era, but quite a bit more modern here, so we'll check this one out.